After I got engaged a few months ago, I began to get very interested in other people's stories of how they chose their engagement rings. And I realized that my experience was not very typical and it was a little bit weird and awkward. So I decided to make a video about it. Most people I talked to had some variation on the theme of the guy just picked something out. He really wanted to propose and he chose something pretty. Here it is. And I think that's probably the better method, but my boyfriend was very particular that he wanted to choose something that he knew for sure I was gonna like, and it was gonna be my style, and it was going to look cute, and it was so much pressure. He didn't want to make that decision all by himself, so we ended up looking for rings together, which was probably a bad idea because I turned out to be very bad at choosing rings. So our journey started in September of 2023. Jeff suggested that we could go to this jeweler that his friends recommended and start looking for rings there. We were super jazzed to go up to this place in San Francisco and just look at all the cool stuff. But unfortunately, that day turned out to be terrible. We got matched with the worst rep I have ever worked with for basically anything, because it was kind of a big deal. Like, people don't choose engagement rings every day. That made it so much more disappointing. Basically, we drove up to the city and we went into the place. It was in this big building in like the basement area, and you had to check in and make sure that like you were supposed to be there. And then there were just all these different jewelry stores. And when we got in, the guy who was supposed to be working with us was on the phone, and he just like kind of made us wait. And we were just sitting there very awkwardly, like, okay. When he finally did hang up the phone, he didn't really apologize, just like, oh yeah, sorry, okay, what are you looking for? And throughout the whole thing, he was very perfunctory, not really interested in us, just kind of, do you like this? No. Okay. Do you like this? No. The longer we worked with him, it felt like the more the pressure built and the stupider I felt. I felt like, why can't I choose an engagement ring? Isn't this what everyone wants? Why can I not find anything I like? Obviously, like, that's not the mindset you want to be in when you're choosing anything, because it just makes it so much harder to feel confident and make a decision. And there were just bizarre things that went wrong. For example, the guy showed us all these different stones first, and only after I couldn't find anything I liked did he move on to showing us different bands. I found the bands much easier to evaluate first, and he even said, oh yeah, some people like to look at stones first, some people like to look at bands first. And that made me think, well, why didn't you give us this option? Why didn't you ask us? Why did you just start showing us different rocks right out of the gate to pressure us into choosing something? If you had made that suggestion at the start, I feel like we could have saved so much time. Actually, the only time Jeff and I really found stuff that we liked was when we kind of wandered away from our rep who was showing us around. He was taking us from one side of the room to another case, and I just kind of drifted over to this case that looked kind of interesting. And I was like, Jeff, come over here. There's little rings that look like they have leaves on them. It's so cool. Everything we liked that day we found in that case that we never would have seen if we had actually followed our rep in a more orderly fashion. That must be the definition of bad customer service, that your customers only do well when they get away from you. So we didn't end up choosing something that day, although we did find a couple bands that we liked and took pictures of them. But we did make an appointment to talk with another rep, and we were hoping that that would go better. Part of the reason that we did have such a hard time was my fault. I really didn't want a diamond, I wanted a colored stone, and when you're looking at engagement rings, something that's for everyday wear, that really limits your options. There's a reason why every gem specialist will steer you towards diamonds, and it's not just that it's more expensive and they can make more money off of those. It's because they're the hardest to stone. Only the diamonds will have a strength of 10 and be basically almost impossible to scratch unless you knock your ring against another diamond ring. If you don't go with a diamond, the gem specialist will strongly encourage you to do either a sapphire or a ruby, because those are both a hardness of 9. Anything softer than that is more likely to scratch or shatter. So your topazes, your tanzanite, your peach morganite, they will not sell you an opal for an engagement ring. They will try to talk you out of it because opals are incredibly soft and you can't even use a jewelry cleaner on them because they're so delicate. You just have to use soap and water. So again, I already made it harder on myself, and we were also working with a person who was making it even harder, so that was not a fun time. It was really tough. And after we finished the appointment and we just went off to enjoy stuff around San Francisco, Jeff and I kind of had this moment of like, was that bad for you too? Like, I'm not going crazy here. And we were both like, yeah, that was really bad. So we could have just not worked with that particular jeweler from that point on. We did decide to try again with a different person. He was more of a colored gem specialist and would be able to like show me stuff that was more like what I was actually looking for. But in between that first appointment and when we met with the new specialist, we just hit like all the different mall jewelry stores. Like we went to Kay Jewelers, we went to Zales, we even went to Nahoku, which is this like Hawaiian themed jewelry. We just went to a whole bunch of different places and the outlets and like the mall, and like we must have gone to like 5 like at least not, maybe not 5, but like 3 different Ks. And we just talked to a bunch of different people and saw a bunch of different options, and basically everyone we talked to was more friendly than that one person who was so cold to us. I don't know what was going on. We almost had this theory that he had gotten some terrible news in that phone call and that just threw him off for the rest of that hour, but I have no idea what was going on, or maybe he just didn't like the look of us. It's kind of hard to tell. So we did some research. We found some more options that we liked that we could show to the next rep that we were working with. And we actually met her in the same jeweler, but at different locations. So we went up to Walnut Creek instead of to San Francisco. And she was super nice. She brought in some colored gems, like some sapphires and some colored diamonds for us to look at. I still didn't quite like anything that she showed us, because a lot of the sapphires, a lot of them can tend to be very dark, and I wanted something with a little bit more sparkle. But at least she was very easy to work with, and I felt like I could explain what I liked and what I didn't like. And on that day, I did choose a band, because she brought in some of the ones that we had looked at on the previous appointment and some new ones. And I was like, ooh, like, I kind of like this one. Yeah, let's go with this. By that point, I'd also looked at a bajillion different bands, and it's not that this one was so much more perfect compared to everything else I'd seen before, but more that I was just so tired of looking that when I saw one that was nice, I was like, yes, that one. These two are both nice, but this one is slightly more nice, so I want this one. So by this point, a couple weeks had passed from the first appointment, but I still didn't have a stone. I had an idea that I wanted a sapphire because it's, I guess, hard as you can get without being a diamond, and that I wanted something that was either round or oval because that would be the most sparkly, it would have the most like kind of luminescence to it. So for the next appointment, I actually went back by myself without Jeff to look at a few more stones. By this point, I had tried him around to so many different jewelry stores that I was just like, I'm just gonna try to choose something, babe. Thank you for being this patient with me. So I went back to the Walnut Creek location early on a Friday. This time, our nice gem specialist had brought some really good options. I looked at the various options with like a white gold and a yellow gold sample band to see how they would look against different colors. And we talked about what might look best with my skin tone. She strongly recommended yellow gold because my skin is a little pink and it has some warm tones. And she said that white gold would also look nice, but it would be a bit more icy. And I hadn't thought of it that way before, but once I compared them, I could kind of see where she was coming from. And basically the 4 options I looked at that day were like a dark blue sapphire, a light blue sapphire, a pink sapphire, and kind of a peachy pink sapphire. And I ended up choosing the peachy pink with a yellow gold band. It looked really cool and it was a really fun stone. It was lab created, but I don't really care whether something's in the ground or in a lab, and on a molecular level it's the same anyways. I actually managed to offend this rep the first time I ever talked to her on the phone because I mentioned that lab created stones are more ethical because they're not exploiting human labor. And it turns out she and her husband did have a diamond mine in Africa. And they were like, but we're a nice diamond mine. We're a cool mine. We're not like those other mines. And I was like, oh my gosh, whoopsie. I sent Jeff a photo of the stone that I had chosen and he thought it looked great too. You would think that at this point, everything would be set because we have the stone, we have the band, we just kind of need to put them together and then we'll have the ring. However, I was still involved and I was like very determined to make this more complicated than it needed to be. So as you do, I happened to look up the website for the band designer. I believe it was Gabriel New York. So I did find my band and I saw that it came in a couple different options and I was like, wait, it's in white gold, yellow gold, and rose gold. How come she never mentioned that it came in rose gold? And I was like, no! Because by this time it had been almost a week, maybe over a week. I was like, oh no, like they probably are already making a ring. It's probably too late to change. But it's rose gold, and rose gold will look so good with the pink. It would look so much better than yellow gold even. And I was like going back and forth, like, no, like I can't change it. Yellow gold will look great. But rose gold, maybe I should just ask. So after a night of soul searching, I texted our gem specialist and said, is there any chance that we could possibly switch to rose gold? And she was like, it's been a week. The stone, like the ring is going to go into production today. I can't change it. I'll see if I can change it. Hang on. And then she like moved some mountains and called me back while I was covering something for work, so I couldn't even get the call right away. And she said, yes, we can change it to rose gold, but you have to tell me for sure within an hour, and then that's it. You can't change it again. I switched it at the very last second from yellow gold to rose gold, and that was the last change that I made. And finally, the ring was in production. It was being made. I think it was in mid-November when Jeff and I got a call or an email from the jeweler saying that the ring was ready and we could come and pick it up on Saturday. And we were so excited. And we came in and to the San Francisco store again, and we saw it, and it was so cool and so beautiful, and we're like, yay, here it is. I still had to wait because Jeff wanted to do a cute proposal with the ring. We had been ring shopping for forever. There was no surprise whatsoever. I had literally seen this exact ring, but he wanted to arrange something, so I had to wait until mid-December for him to actually propose. But it was worth it because we were on the beach in Carmel and he like wanted to go down there at sunset. It was very sweet. It was super hard to wait. I was like, is this ever actually gonna happen? I don't believe it. I don't think it's gonna happen. But then it did happen and it was lovely. And then I had the ring and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. So my advice to other couples trying to choose an engagement ring, I would say either just don't be picky at all. Just go with the first nice thing you see and have fun with it. Or be super, super picky and do as much research as possible and choose something that fits your own weird criteria. But probably don't be as weird and indecisive as I am. Probably the jewelers you work with will thank you if you're not like me. Yeah, that's my engagement ring story, and it's probably one of the weirder ones. Don't be like me. Bye.